people then might say, oh, that color really suits you, but it's because the color's bringing you out rather than hiding you or, making you look flat or maybe making you look washed out.
Welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast. I'm Jo Clark and I'm so glad you're here. And this is a podcast for women who are ready to break free from outdated stereotypes, rediscover themselves, and embrace the endless opportunities that midlife brings. Each week, I'll share expert advice, actionable strategies, and inspiring conversations with incredible women who are redefining what it means to thrive in midlife and beyond. From health and wellness to reigniting your purpose and passions, this is your go-to podcast for feeling empowered, supported, and seen. And midlife isn't the end. It's your time to shine, rewrite your story, and create a life that you truly love. So let's get started. Welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast. Now, whether you are a long-time listener or you're tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad you're here. Now, let me ask you something to get you ready for today's super fascinating conversation. Have you ever noticed yourself gravitating toward certain colours? Do you know which colours truly suit you and which ones might be working against you? If you've ever stood in front of your wardrobe wondering why on earth some outfits make you feel amazing while others just feel a little bit blah and off, well then today's episode is for you. I'm joined by Ashley Longstaff, a colour and style expert and the founder of Loving Colour. Ashley helps women discover the shades that make them shine and build a wardrobe that feels effortless, confident, and uniquely them. And the best part? She's not about trends or rigid fashion rules. Ashley believes style should be fun, stress-free, and a reflection of who you really are. All that sounds perfect to me. And if you love today's conversation and you want to dive deeper into the world of colour and fashion, be sure to follow Ashley on Instagram at Loving Colour and check out her podcast, Life in Colour, where she shares insights on fashion, wellness, and thriving in your 40s. In fact, I was a recent guest on Ashley's show. Now, you'll find all the links in the show notes to everything that's been mentioned. Let's get started. A very big welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast, Ashley. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Jo. I'm really excited to chat to you today.
Excellent. Because we had a pre-chat last week, so there's lots that I know about you, but I want our audience to get to know you a bit more. So we are going to be deep diving into colour, how colour and confidence are intertwined when it comes to our clothing choices, and how maybe just a few tweaks in our wardrobe could really make a big difference to how we look and feel. But before we get into your area of expertise, I would just love everyone to know a little bit more about you as a person. And in our pre-chat, you talked about your earlier years, which I found absolutely fascinating because it was quite different to the growing up years most of us have had, in that, we were at one or two schools, maybe three or four if at a stretch, but you had a very different upbringing. Would you mind sharing some of that?
Sure. So just so everyone knows, I am a 43. I had to think about that. I thought I was 42 for a sec. No, I'm 43 and I live on the Northern Beaches in Sydney with my beautiful family. But yes, I did not always live here. So I was an expat kid and I grew up moving every 2 years of my life pretty much until about the age of 14. And sometimes it would be less than 2 years. And yeah, I ended up going to 18 schools. So there was a time when the amount of schools that I went to outweighed my age. And it was great. And I really enjoyed it. And I've always said to my parents, I wouldn't be the person that I am today if I hadn't have had that upbringing. So I moved all over Australia. I've lived in Brizzy. So Brizzy's my hometown. And I've lived there 3 times. But I grew up in the Middle East. That's what I sort of remember the most. And even after, in the middle of uni, I actually took some time out of uni because my parents were back in the Middle East and I went and I worked there for a little bit. And then I came back and finished my degree. So growing up in the Middle East was amazing. It opens your eyes up to, there are so many cultures out there and so many languages. And I think we're quite a, I guess, open-minded household, because my husband also grew up in the Middle East, because of that. And because, you're I guess the culture and everything that you're surrounded with, it's just so different. But when you live there from the age of 7, it becomes the norm. So I'll be honest, like hearing when we watch a movie and we hear the call to prayer and you see it, that almost feels like another home to me because
Yeah.
I grew up with it so much. It was just amazing.
So actually talk to what countries in the Middle East, because Middle East, when we say Middle East, you got to pick
Okay.
a couple
Yeah.
of countries. So what countries did you actually live in?
Sure. So first I lived in Bahrain. We were only there for 9 months. So Bahrain is the tiny little dot next to Saudi Arabia is how we used to describe it to friends. And it
Yes.
wasn't very well known when we first moved, but obviously, you've got the Bahrain Grand Prix and everything there now. And then I moved to Muscat in the Sultanate of Oman, which is a
Mm.
beautiful country, really, really beautiful, like very strict though. So my mum always had to wear things that were like to her elbows almost. You had to be quite covered up. Obviously, I was a kid, so it was different. But she got pulled over once because her car wasn't clean enough, and they would make you go clean your car. It was like a fastidiously clean
Oh,
country, beautiful country. And she was late to picking me up because they'd made her go and have her car cleaned. And then from there, so we had the Gulf War in there as well. I got evacuated out of Bahrain to the UK. So I actually went to school for 3 months in the UK whilst we were evacuated.
wow.
And then I ended up in Dubai that was the last posting in the Middle East was Dubai. And Dubai back then is so different to how it is now. We can't wait to take our kids back, but we're also very aware that it is so different to how my husband and I knew it.
Mm.
Um, you would do cross country in the desert, like literally in the sand. And I remember saying to my kids, you don't know how hard cross country is until you have done it in a desert. Like,
Yes, stop your whinging.
yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was there until 14, 15, and I went to obviously a private British school, but I went to a non-denominational school. And my parents brought me back to Australia. And because I'm dual citizenship, my parents are English, and I felt more British than I did Australian. So coming back here was a bit of a shock. And then the only school that had a space in the middle of term 3, year 9, which is just the worst time to move
Yes,
school,
yeah.
was an all-girls school run by nuns.
Wow.
So it was a very, very big change.
Welcome to Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I grew to love it, and I'm very proud of so I'm a Maggie's girl, St. Margaret's girl, and I'm very proud of that. But it did take a little bit of time to settle.
Huge. What an extraordinary upbringing you had.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah, it
sometimes look back on it and go and so well you said that you were thankful earlier.
always,
But
yeah, yeah,
it's a life
always.
that we could only I'd say the vast majority of us could only ever imagine.
Yeah, and it took me a while. Like once you've got that travel in your blood, and
Mm,
we do because we're both airline kids, and I think my daughter's definitely got it in her blood, and my son loves planes. One of my sons, I get itchy feet, and
okay.
so we've lived in Sydney now for 17 years, which to me just wouldn't. I would never have thought that I would ever have done that. Actually, no, coming up 18 years, and that's where taking them overseas and traveling becomes really important for me. And we went and did a big trip to the States with the kids a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And we were in the cities, whereas other people would think, oh, I love visiting here. We're kind of like, in particular me, oh, once the kids are older, I'd love to live here for a couple of years. That would be great.
Mhm.
I'd really enjoy that. I can see myself living here. And it's just that mindset of being that expat kid. I'm not afraid to take risks and try something like that because it's just
Yes.
second nature. Yeah.
Because that would be really unusual as well for you as an adult being in the one spot, you know, growing some roots there and making connections that are long lasting that you would see
Yes.
more face to face because you wouldn't have experienced that as a child. You know, you make friends, especially young children, they make friends in a heartbeat. And then to be uprooted and move somewhere else. Now,
Yeah, that was hard. Um, but then likewise, I log into Facebook and I have friends all over the world. And
yes, of
it's purely
course.
because we were all expat kids. And funnily enough, a lot of the expat kids have gone back to live in, especially Dubai, have gone back to live there because they couldn't re-assimilate to
Mm.
what is regular, like a regular lifestyle. But I think for me, seeing my kids, they've gone to two schools, one preschool, one child would have gone to one school. And so they've had the complete opposite to what I've had. And looking at it from that experience, I always used to think, did I miss out on that? Because, there are people who, I've been best friends with that person since I was 3. But then my daughter in particular has gone through the same friendship things that all girls seem to go through. And whilst she will have friends, I don't necessarily think she'll have those things from, oh, well, when I was 3 and we've been in the same place the whole time. So it's given that real perspective for me on how you can live a really different life, but sort of at some stage end up at the same place, if that makes any
Oh, it makes
sense.
total sense.
And I love that they've got a home that, I lived in so many homes, some that I liked and some that I hated. The one in Muscat, they had to put all rat traps and everything out because the house was like infested. So
No.
I have a rat phobia from that. But yeah, I wouldn't change a thing, but I want my kids to travel as they get older because I want them to experience that from it as much as they can, rather than I don't want them just to stay in one place and not do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely fascinating. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And what did you do then? You were in Australia. You got used to living at the school. You assimilated.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was hard when you first started. What did you do then? So on with uni. What was your career?
Yeah. So I finished school and I went to uni and I did a Bachelor of Communications, and I then switched into a business degree. I upgraded and I did a double major in advertising and PR. So I tried a couple of things first, that weren't quite how I wanted it to be. And then I transferred to QUT, and that was where I had a lot of fun. I loved it there. And so, yeah, I did a double major in advertising and PR and marketing and just fell in love with it and really enjoyed it. And then I happened to spend, mum and dad was still in the Middle East. So I happened to spend Christmas in the Middle East with them. And I met my husband on Christmas Day because they were family friends, and we'd gone to school together. He's 5 years older, but I knew his brother. His brother was in my year, and we happened to spend Christmas Day together. Uh, and then we just kept in touch. And then romance kind of bloomed, and we spent 3 weeks together. I flew to the UK, and we decided I would move over. And literally the day after I graduated, I moved to the UK.
Wow, that's a
Mm.
big step too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't do things by halves. So yeah.
Clearly not. And you so married, living a corporate life over in the UK. Is that what happened for you? Is that how life unfolded?
Yeah, being older, he'd already established his career.
Hmm.
So yeah, we lived in Reading, and I worked at a couple of PR agencies, and then I found my dream job. I always say you just never know, and it was one of those ones where where you email your CV, and I don't know how many people even do that as much now, but you just email it in case they've got anything.
Hmm.
And I got a call a bit later, and I worked at WAV Collins, which is a big ad agency, and I worked on their cruelty for children account for the NSPCC. And that would have to be one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever done. And I worked for Great Ormond Street Hospital as well. So that, I think, was probably from my working career where I worked for someone else rather than myself. That was the
Yes.
highlight. Yeah, just
Yeah.
loved it.
And so
Yeah.
when you moved to Australia, Ashley, were you also in corporate or did you start your business straight
No,
away?
when we came back, so I always said that I wanted to have kids at home.
Yeah.
That was, being an Aussie girl, that just,
And so home then became Australia for you. You
yeah,
said,
home was always Australia. After
yeah,
that, I'd been in Brisbane from 7 to 14. So that firmly established me back
gotcha.
as,
Yeah.
an Australian, as a Brizzy girl.
Hmm.
And I had made it pretty clear from the get-go that if we're going to do this, I will always want to come back home. He didn't want to go to Brisbane because he was used to sort of bigger cities and everything, and he really liked Sydney. So, and we did a trip out here looking at Melbourne, looking at Sydney, and we chose Sydney. And so we came back, and I was still in corporate, and I went and I worked at an agency. And I thought at the time, I've done charity work, I should try something else. And I ended up on the Telstra account, and that, no, I didn't enjoy that at all. It was just, there was obviously a lot of bureaucracy, and I realized that telecoms was not where my heart was. And then I left, and I happened to find out that I was pregnant with my daughter the week after I left. And I was so sick with morning sickness, like so ill. So I took some time out, and then I freelanced for a much smaller agency for a while, working on financial accounts. And that was great. And that was until she was born. And then I had 3 under 4. So they kept me busy for a really long time. Yeah.
So how did you get into then your career of color analysis? Like where does that fit into your career path?
I know it's a bit long and winding. So I tried a few things first. I've always, I think, wanted to be, I heard on a podcast once the phrase a wandering entrepreneur. And I was like, that fits me to a T, where you wander about and you try different things. You always know that that's where you're going to end up, working for yourself and being an entrepreneur. But it took a while. So I started my own clothing store, an online clothing store, back in 2019, which I loved, really, really loved. But then I got onto the bandwagon of new arrivals every week and things like that. And it just didn't sit well with me. I didn't want to be in that fast fashion space. Obviously, you've got COVID happening literally at the same time, homeschooling 3 kids. And then I had this dream of, okay, I will manufacture my own clothing line, which I did. I designed and manufactured my own clothing line. And I wear those dresses, and I can't tell you the joy. I happened to be at a cheerleading thing, and I looked up and I saw someone in the distance wearing one of my dresses.
Now, can we just stop? Can we pause there? And I just want to talk about, where did you get into fashion? Like you were.
Oh, sorry, I skipped that bit.
Yeah.
Sorry. I've always loved it.
Okay, so it was just something that you purely enjoyed.
Yeah.
Created that passion into something that you thought was going to make okay.
Yeah. So when I worked in London at that ad agency, obviously at an agency, you know, you can push the boundaries with what you wear. Not that I did, but at my previous job, there's no way I would have worn the high heels with the really short skirt that I used to in winter with black tights, but I could get away with it at the agency. And you were then allowed to wear jeans on a Friday. And I was known as the most coordinated person in the office.
Right.
So the shoes, the bags, the colors, everything. And I've always really enjoyed it. And I don't quite know, I think maybe going all the way back, 2014, 2015, I think I decided to start a blog. That's right. Under the name of I Choose Me, which became the clothing store. I started a blog to do with fashion and beauty, because that was something that I was naturally good at, and I felt I could help other mums with it. And that's where it started, because I could do that from home with the kids.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for filling that gap. I'm a little sticky, Beck. I've got to find out all the details.
No, I didn't realize I hadn't connected the dots on that. So yeah, so that then morphed into a clothing business, which morphed into me manufacturing and doing my own line, which I loved.
That's massive, though. Like,
yeah,
there are lots of moving parts when you go into that sort of a business.
Yeah, and I did all of that. That was when Sydney was in that 5-month lockdown.
Ah, geez.
But that was a lot. And yeah, there is so much to learn to do with the pattern and the grading. And then nobody in that industry, and I mean nobody, wants to share information.
Okay.
Even when I first started with where I would go and I would buy clothing that other brands had manufactured, no one will tell you. They will guard it like a closely kept secret. And so I had to find all of that out by myself. And I remember when I bought my first load of clothes for the shop, I called my husband crying in the car, because I think I'd spent like $3,000, and that was a lot for me to spend and invest in a business that we didn't know. And I remember bringing all these bags of clothes home and putting them by the front door. And he said, okay, now you just have to sell them. And I was like, yep. And I did. So it went really, really well. But I changed. What I didn't realize when I went to manufacture my own clothes, I moved price point, and I expected the audience to come with me, and some did and some didn't. And looking back, I can understand that, because I'd moved from more of like a fast fashion to a slow fashion business model.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it got to the point where the anxiety, not that I would outwardly really tell anyone, but it became quite crippling because I'm like, I've got all this stock in the cupboard and what am I going to do with it? And I can't do a new collection until I've sold this collection. And then some other bits and pieces happened behind the scenes, you know, with employing ad agencies, which basically took every cent that I had.
Mm.
And so there are a few decisions in there which looking, you know, they're lessons. My dad was amazing in saying, no, it's not something to be ashamed of or regret. It's a lesson, and you've learnt that lesson now.
Mm.
And so I decided to close it, which was the best decision I ever made, because I then, on a whim, discovered color analysis when my whole family had the flu. And I watched a video on YouTube, and it was like the missing piece of the puzzle came together. So everything in there, I'm a qualified makeup artist, I'm a stylist, and then now I do color as well. So the whole package kind of comes together. So everything I've done to date now
It's
it
led you
is
to this
integrated in
point.
it. Yeah.
Mm. Isn't it interesting when you wind back and you see the steps it's taken you to
Yeah.
now, and then, you know, in another 10 years time, you'll look back at this point in your life and go, you know, that what I'm doing now is taking me to
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
part.
And even back to my degree, and even back to, because I did direct marketing when I was working for NSPCC, all of those skills come into play now. All of
Mm.
my
Mm.
communication skills, my marketing skills, my business
Nothing's
degree.
wasted, is it? And as you found out, you know, sometimes that no, or sometimes a hard lesson will move you into a different trajectory, and that can be the beginning of something pretty special. That's why I always love to ask women when I have you know,
Yeah.
extraordinary everyday women like yourself come on, just ask them how they got to this particular point, because everyone's got that background story and it can be so different to what you can expect. And that's what I love about chatting to women, to find out what they've done and how they're, you know, they're creating their life now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, looking back, like with those mistakes that you make, which aren't really mistakes, they all, I tell that to my children, they all lead on to something. And I
Mm.
think one thing I did learn though, when other people in like a corporate career or you know, I call it a regular career, but if they're not happy in their job, they quite happily say, you know what, I'm going to look for a new one and I'm going to resign when I'm ready to. When you're an entrepreneur, I think there's that extra pressure around it. The number of people who said to me, I can't believe you're closing it. You've spent so much time on this. Why on earth would you do it? And I'm like, because it's not making me happy. It's not where I am at now or anymore. People couldn't understand it. And I think there's that extra pressure when you are an entrepreneur. People just expect you to keep going,
Mm-hmm.
whether you like it or not. And so actually saying no and drawing a line in that sand and pivoting to whatever it is you want to do, or even I closed not knowing what the next step was going to be. I just waited for it to come to me. You know, it's hard.
It is hard. And I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've come from a very safe career for over 3 decades.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to be getting a paycheck every fortnight. That was guaranteed. I'd get holiday pay. I had sick leave. Yeah, there was that guarantee. When you leave that and you're starting something completely new from zero, from nothing, there's a lot that you gamble with. There's a lot of unknowns, and it can be, there are some absolutely incredible moments, but there's also some of that tough, the tough
Oh,
lessons as well.
absolutely. And
Keep those.
you don't, you know, there are times I say to my husband, he works from home quite a bit. And I say, if you've got a question, you've got your whole team around you. You've got people below you, you've got your boss and mentors above you, and you've
Mm.
got your board. He works for quite a big company, so he's got a broader team he can go to. And I'm like, there's me, and I've got some amazing friends from e-commerce days, and we brainstorm. I now have, as you know, I've got an amazing business coach, and I've invested in that. You
Yeah,
have to have that around you,
you
because
do.
don't have that support, and not everyone needs that one-to-one coach. You know, I've done the smaller groups and the big groups and everything, because when that moment when you feel alone and you are second guessing everything, you just need that sounding board. Even if it's someone to say, just take a breath,
Hmm.
just take a breath and leave it for a few days and see what happens.
That's right. I mean, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your business. And unlike you, I've done the group thing. I've also
Yeah.
done private mentoring as well, which I absolutely love. And I love offering that. That's business side, but it's also important to have that in the life, when your business is one aspect of your life, if you've got someone to help you also guide you in other areas, not to tell you what to do, but to give you some of those pointed questions that
Absolutely.
help you make the decision
To get
on
you thinking.
yes, because you don't know what you don't know. And people come in with, when they don't have
Exactly.
that personal um, accountability to you, as in, yes, I'm invested in you and your growth, but I'm not a major player in your life.
Hmm.
That yeah, it's a very I'm probably not explaining it very well. I can see you nodding, so you kind of
No,
get
no,
my
no, I understand. No, I'm trying to nod to let you know,
yeah,
right? So I'm
yes.
not talking over
I'm
the.
sure everyone who's not who's listening, they can't see these nods, but we're giving each
No,
other. So
I am
yeah,
giving
keep
nods.
going, Jay. You'll get there eventually. I'll get through the custard and try to say something. But yeah, it's interesting. You've got somebody from the outside looking in, and when you've got your little fishbowl of your friends and your family, sometimes they don't ask you the questions that you need,
No, they don't.
and
And they don't mean it.
that's
It's
kind of what I was trying to get at.
yeah. No, 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 I did understand totally. No, there are times where when I really didn't know what to do on something,
Mm,
and I would ask my dad's very obviously business orientated. I'd ask my dad and talk to my mum and dad, and I'd speak to my husband and talk to friends. But like you say, there's only so much they can give you when they're not in your space or in your world. And I think there is something very different, you know, um, Tracy Harris, who we both, know, and we've been in her groups, she says we're the crazy, is it the 1% or something like that she says for entrepreneurs. And I totally understand that. And so having someone who understands that mindset to take that risk, to put yourself out there, to try something new, you get each other from a totally different perspective.
absolutely. Yeah, you do. So let's deep dive into that whole color analysis a little bit
Yeah,
more. So a YouTube clip was the missing piece of the puzzle
yeah,
for you. So then
yeah.
you
So
learned as much as you could about this area.
I did. I did. I looked around to see what was out there talking about it here, and I was like, you know what? I know so much already I knew a lot about color from when I had done my makeup course.
Hmm.
I knew a lot about undertones and warm versus cool. And then, so that was, I watched it on YouTube. And then I remember picking up this caramel jumper and I looked in the mirror and I was like, ugh. And I was like, I look yellow. And I couldn't, and I went around every mirror in my house. I was like, why do I look yellow in this? Because I
Hoping
used to,
for a different answer from a different
yeah,
mirror.
pretty much. I just thought maybe it was the lighting.
Fair. Yep.
Yeah, and I loved this color so much. And I put it to one side and I'm like, well, that's a bit odd, but hey ho. It's this caramel color. And I really like a caramel color, especially like in autumn, winter. It's really
Mm.
nice. And my best mate and I happened to go to Witchery and I tried on this knit dress and it was in the same color because I hadn't twigged yet. And I put it on and I came out and she was like, no, not really. And so straight away you start to think, oh, it's the cut of the dress. It's the style of the dress. Maybe it's the fabric of the dress that's doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the shop assistant said, we have it in like a petrol teal, like blue green. And I was like, yeah, okay, I might as well. I'm here. I'll try it on. And I tried it on and I came out. And I've actually got a photo that I snapped when I came out because it was like, wow. And it was that wow moment of how much changing the color can do. And it was so, like a light bulb moment of, I can never wear that caramel color ever because it just does nothing for me. It's warm toned and it's got so much yellow in its base. Whereas that cool tone teal, which I had never worn, which actually is now one of my very best colors, and I wear it a lot, it was just sensational.
Hmm.
So that all kind of happened around the same time. And so I deep dived. I'm a Virgo, so I am very big on researching and reading and learning as much as I can and understanding things. And so I took a lot of time to learn to build on the knowledge I already had about color to see how seasonal color analysis works. And then I tested it on every single person in my family, including my dad.
Love it.
Um, yeah, I did that, and even my skeptical son. And the first test that I do, whether that's on virtual or in person, is determine if somebody's warm or cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you take a warm color and a cool color, and I take it away, and you're in front of a mirror. And he's like, he joked and he said, "Are you a witch or something? Because I don't understand how this is happening." Because he, like me, is cool toned, which means we're much better in colors that have a blue or a purple base to them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put something warm toned on him, which has that orange yellow undertone to it, he would go like a weird gray color. It was just bizarre. So it is so fascinating to me how people respond and react to color, and how much it can change how you feel about yourself literally by just changing your color, like me with the dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. Or like you speak about the whole idea of color analysis is not being about trends or fashion rules, but
No.
more about discovering the colors that make you shine and feel uniquely you. So you gave a great example of that, not just for yourself, but for, for your son, for your dad,
Yeah.
for the rest of the people in there. So talk about some of the terms that you use. You've said the warm, the cool, and you've also talked about seasons. Like,
Yes.
yeah, what does all of that mean? So we've got a
Okay.
common language for some of us.
Sure. So seasonal color analysis, it actually started in the 1980s. Uh, and it started with four main seasons. So, like the seasons of the year, you have winter and summer, which are cool based seasons, which I'll explain a bit more in a minute. And then you have autumn and spring, which are warm based seasons. So, when we talk about warm and cool, it's not, when you go and you are matching a foundation to your face, that is your skin tone. So you can see your skin tone, and your skin tone can be slightly different to what your undertone is. So when we talk about warm versus cool, that's your undertone that you can't see. It's literally naked to the invisible eye, and it's running underneath. And so for me, if I put something really warm toned on that has a lot of orange or yellow in it, it clashes with my own natural undertone. And so therefore, it's not always that I look bad in it, it's more that I've got colors out there that make me look so much better.
Mm.
And so I start to take on that sallowy, sickly kind of look. I can look a bit washed out, and it just doesn't work. So then when you go between all of the seasons, summer and autumn are much softer.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not as vibrant or as bold as winter and spring. Winter and spring, if you imagine like the jewel tones for winter, like your emeralds and your cobalt blues and your fuchsia pinks and your black and your white, your very true colors, they're very clear. So they haven't had really any white mixed into them or gray or any colors mixed into them to make them like a variation of what they already are, like a baby pink compared to a hot pink, for example. Spring is the same, except they are warm based. So if you imagine a garden full of spring flowers, really vibrant, beautiful, happy colors, that's what spring is. Autumn is exactly what you think it is. It's the really rich, earthy, beautiful colors. And then summer, which is what I am, it's more pastely. It's basically, imagine winter dialed right the way down. So we've had some white mixed in, or maybe some gray. And there are sub seasons within each season, which is what has developed over the past, since the 1980s, so the past 40 years. So I work on a 12 based season, color analysis seasons. And so I first classify someone whether they are warm or cool. We then find out which season they are, and then I test to see which sub-season they then fall into. So to give you an example and not overload everyone, I'll take summer. I'm a light summer, which means my colors have had a lot more white mixed into them to make them lighter. You have soft summer, which has had a lot more gray, so really muted, delicate kind of colors.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have cool summer, which is the most vibrant out of all of them, but also the coolest in tone. So really, really blue-based colors. So that's kind of a brief, without confusing anyone, a brief overview, of what
So
color.
it's interesting, isn't it? Because you think about, okay, I've got a favorite color, and sometimes person's favorite color is a color that they then choose for the clothes that they wear, for the accessories that they buy, but it
Yeah.
may not necessarily be the color that best suits them. Would that be fair to say?
So like me with the caramel jumper,
Yeah, okay. You love the idea of the calendar.
I love it. I love the idea of it. But yes, there are some people out there that potentially, and I've had clients like this, where they are drawn to really bright, bold colors when actually, in fact, they're like a soft autumn, which is almost like the polar opposite. There are still ways of incorporating their favorite colors in. And as you know, like you mentioned, I'm not about rules or trends or anything like that. If you have a color that you love in your wardrobe, even after you've done an analysis with me or with someone else, wear it, still wear it. It's just how you can maybe tweak it a little bit to make it work a little bit better for you. Yeah.
Okay. So are there any particular basic rules? Let's say, like, I'm coming with a complete zero understanding of this. This is all new information for me. Are there some basic rules to get yourself going on just what to look at?
Yep. So if you're doing it from home and you just want a basic idea of maybe like where to start, whether you lean warm or whether you lean cool, a really good way to do that is to hold up white against you and then to hold up cream against you and see which one looks better. And try and do this in front of a window in natural light and either get someone to take a photo of you or just snap it yourself on your phone. And you can start to see whether maybe does the white wash you out? Is it too harsh against your skin, or does it make your skin take on a real freshness to it? And likewise with the cream, does the cream really harmonize with you and bring out your best features and make your eyes and your hair and your skin look really nice? Or do you start to look a bit sallowy, a bit sickly, a little bit yellow? It gives you an idea. And I find also with color and with colors, when people are wearing the wrong color, whether they know it or not, when you put up a color against you, you can have almost a physical reaction to it. Like you can shirk away from it. So if you have kind of a physical reaction to it, that can also give you an indication as to whether it's the right color for you or not. Another quick tip is the jewelry test. Now, this one is a little bit, it's not that it's controversial. I was looking for the right word then. It's more that jewelry is so small. I say to my clients, don't feel you have to change all of your jewelry. It's just that there's one generally that suits you better than the other one. So for me, being cool tone, that's silver. And so it harmonizes really beautifully for me. My daughter is a deep autumn. If you put silver on her, her skin goes muddy. It just doesn't suit her. It just clashes. It doesn't harmonize. Where if you put gold on her, she looks amazing. Gotcha. So if you find that gold suits you more, you could be more likely warm toned. If silver, then you could be more cool toned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a starting point to have a look in your wardrobe.
Gotcha. It's so interesting. And let's think about, all right, for women of our age.
Yes.
When you're starting to get into midlife, your color changes. So think about hair. For some women, hair goes darker. For other, and that's what happened to me when I had children too. My hair got darker and darker with each child. Some women go lighter, some go completely grey, and so many more women are now embracing grey hair.
Yes.
Then you've got your skin tone does change as you get older. Like it's not quite as vibrant as it was when you were younger. So
yeah.
What do the rules change? Well, I say rules, but does
no, I know what you mean.
We don't want to have a lot of rules that we've got to follow, but does the
criteria change?
Yeah.
So in a quick snapshot, no, it doesn't. Generally, when you are classified as a season, you will be that season for your entire life. So, for example, I've got a client who her mum did it for her in the 80s, and she was classified as a winter back then. I redid her last year, and she's still a winter, but I've classified her as a deep winter. So because now the seasons have expanded to include so many sub-seasons. So what I say to my clients, though, is as you're getting older, or if you change your hair color, you might move around your sub-seasons a bit. So to give you an example of that, my best friend is a deep autumn. Years ago, she used to have blonde hair. When she had blonde hair, she could wear, or she did used to wear, a lot of the soft autumn colors. And then when we did her analysis and realized she was a deep autumn, she then dyed her hair much darker. So it does actually suit her much better, but she moved between the seasons because of changing her hair color. If she went back to being blonde, she'd probably move back up a little bit, even though at heart she's a deep autumn. In terms of when you're going gray, it doesn't in theory change your undertone. It's just that then you're balancing the colors that you wear with your gray hair, which gray, as we know, generally runs quite cool because gray is a cool based color. So then it's just knowing how to accessorize, use your makeup, use blush, lipstick, and then the colors that you wear in order to still be true to your color palette, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, it does make sense. Does
Yeah.
make sense. And, you know, if we think about it again, women have got so many societal rules, especially as you age. You know, there's so many things that you know, people expect you to do, people expect you to wear. You've only got to look through all the fashion magazines. You've only got to walk into most of the fashion stores, and the clothes are for women who are for younger than, you know, we walk in.
Yeah.
There are lots of women who might want to try a particular style or particular color, but they might feel that, oh, it's a bit too out there for me, or not have the confidence to give it a go. Even though we say at this age we become more confident and who gives an F about a lot of things,
Yeah.
there's still that inner critic, that inner voice, that inner mean girl, whatever it might be, worried about, am I really, you know, that horrible term, mutton dressed up as lamb, which is
Yes.
just a revolting term. So
Oh, it is.
what do you advise women to do? Like if all of a sudden they're wearing a color or advised a color that's more out there than they're used to, or a style that's more out there than used to, that's showing these colors, what do they do?
Okay, so when let's start with color, and I'll do it in two sections, color and then style. So with color, if for example it is literally the opposite of what you would normally wear, it's baby steps. And I am not about throwing out your entire wardrobe and starting again. I am very much, you clear and sort your wardrobe to where you are now, including keeping things. I've got things in my wardrobe that are my worst color. I still wear them because I love it. And also my kids might have bought it for me, something like that.
Yeah.
So the baby steps would be to wear it as an earring, to wear it as a scarf, choose a handbag. A pair of shoes in your color is a great way to start because they're literally at the bottom. And so you don't feel that you're covered in them. But if you can imagine someone who is cool toned and they're wearing a pair of jeans and a white shirt, but they've got a pair of like cobalt blue shoes on, or they've got a pair of red shoes on, or likewise, if they're in autumn and they've chosen like a really rich, like magenta kind of purple, you've got that hint of color, but you're not covered in it. And so that is what I say to people who are really not struggling, but overpowered a bit by how are they going to manage incorporating their new colors into them. In terms of styles, I do think there's quite the pressure, like you were saying. Yes, we say at this age, we are more confident and bold and everything, but then we're reticent maybe to try a new style because we've never worn it before. Or you walk in and the shop assistant maybe gives you that kind of, you know, kind of a look and you're like, oh, I'll just put it back. So with that, I mean, my advice as a stylist is always just try it. Just go for it and try it. If your legs are your best feature, then don't worry about wearing the shorter skirt or wearing the shorts. Wear them, like enjoy that. If you feel that you want to highlight your bust more, wear a really flattering neckline that then suits that. If you're more self-conscious because you've got a smaller bust, again, there are ways that you can choose items, say with like a V-neck, or you can even put a different kind of bra underneath. I know that there are so many women out there wearing the wrong size bra, which makes such a big impact on how your clothes actually fit on you. But don't talk yourself out of it before you've even tried it, because if you think of the advice we give our kids, and we do it all the time, and we say, no, can you really say that you don't want to do that anymore because you haven't even tried? You've been to one lesson of piano, or you haven't even started writing the history assessment yet, and you're saying you're bad at it. You don't know until you've given it a go. So again, if you're really not sure, baby steps, but and you don't have to invest like a lot of money into something. But if there is, say you like wearing straps, like strappy dresses, and everyone tells you or around you is like, oh no, women of a certain age or midlife can't wear that because of our arms. Try a really nice cami and then put it with a pair of jeans. And then you can always put a little cardigan over the top if you want to, but then you can take it off when you feel that you're more confident to do that. So there are little ways that you can. I think injecting personality at this age is so important because we give so much of ourselves to our kids. And, you know, you're dressing to be the mum at the park. You're dressing because you're a primary school mum. Or I get a lot of clients who are now empty nesters. And so their life has changed again and they're not quite sure what their style is. So we then go through that process of, okay, well, what do you want to wear now? Just because you wore that 5 years ago, it doesn't mean that you still have to wear it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many terms, aren't there? I mean, I was just thinking when you were talking about that whole yummy mummy concept, and then you all of a sudden
Yeah.
left them, well, what am I? What am I now? I'm still a mummy.
Yeah.
I could be yummy, but it's going to be looking slightly different.
Yeah. And I think that's where Instagram, like, I love Instagram because, you know, that's where my business is pretty much housed on in Instagram. However, the pressure that it's also put on in order to then, you know, it used to be those perfect feeds. So there was that pressure of, you know, oh, well, that's how they managed to look like that every day. How can I can't live up to that, you know, I can't do it. And so when it comes to style, figuring out what your personality is, that's the key to it. So if you've got that one dress in your wardrobe and you lean towards it all the time and it's a really beautiful classic cut, and the other things you've got are maybe a little bit more bohemian and you don't feel great in it, then that's telling you actually more classic pieces would suit you best. Or if you don't feel comfortable in maxi dresses, don't wear them. Just because everyone else is doesn't mean that you have to. And if you love the dress, get either, if you can sew, hem it yourself. If not, take it to someone and get it altered so that you can wear it, but just wearing it differently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very wise. So also, Ashley, you offer a virtual color analysis. So for women are going, oh, I've got no idea. Okay, I've done the t-shirt, I've done the cream, and then the white. I've got a bit of an idea. Tell us more about that because that's quite fascinating as well, how all of that works.
Yeah, it is. It's I love doing my virtual online analysis. So how it works is I send somebody an email with lots of information and I ask them to take lots of selfies in front of a window with lots of different colors, like every color you can think of. And it doesn't have to be clothes. It can be towels, sheets. I've had people use kids' toys. I've had them go to Officeworks and buy, you know, cardboard.
Yeah.
From there, I analyze for a very long time. I analyze those photos and then I put it through my own program that I've built as well. I always have one in like a white t-shirt. And then we go back for round 2. And then from there, I determine their color palette. And then they receive from me their 30 colors in their color palette. They also get 90 colors within their sister palettes. They get some ideas of shopping recommendations of what to look for when you're in stores within your color palette. And they also get makeup recommendations as well based on them and their skin tone, and then also based on their color palette as well. So it's a really great process and I have so much fun doing it. And it's just amazing when I get emails saying, I can't believe I've never worn this color before. I've had someone messaged me the other day, she'd never worn yellow. And I'd recommended a country road top to her and she had comments all day long. And that just makes my heart so happy.
Yeah.
And you start to get compliments, not based on the color. It's, wow, you look really amazing today. People then might say, oh, that color really suits you, but it's because the color's bringing you out rather than hiding you or, you know, making you look flat or maybe making you look washed out. So color is so powerful.
Yeah, it is. It influences mood. We know that from the various psychological studies. You know, they have certain colors that they've done and they love to have calming colors for in prisons and in some classrooms. And yeah, there's
Yeah.
the use of color. I mean, there is a science to it
Oh,
as
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating. So if people wanted to know more information about that, that'll all be in the show notes too, that they can click on for that. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
sounds lots of fun for you.
Yeah.
Your color improved when you were talking about it. You lit up. So you also started actually your podcast Life in Color last year, and I'm thrilled to be an upcoming guest on your show. Now it's a big decision for you to get yourself out there and to share your voice and your ideas with people. I know what that's like.
Yeah.
What made you decide to start a podcast?
Oh gosh. I've always wanted to have a podcast. Like I would say for about 5 or 6 years, I've always wanted to have a podcast. I was the one on the report card getting Ashley chats a lot in class. So I've never ever had problems talking or being chatty. And I just felt it was one of those juxtapositions a little bit because a lot of fashion people would sort of start more with YouTube. Obviously, I'm on Instagram, but they would start with YouTube. Whereas I felt I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm in the car, when I've dropped off the kids, when I go for a walk, when I'm cleaning the house. I don't always have time to sit to watch something. And that's where I think podcasts are so amazing.
Mm.
And I just really enjoy it. And obviously I can't wait to have you on because my audience is also so interested to learn more about, perimenopause and transitioning through the different seasons of life as women as we get older and move out of that stage of having younger kids. But I also talk about health and wellness from my perspective, from having had endometriosis my entire life, and I had a hysterectomy at 41. And then I like to talk all things style, fashion, clearing out your wardrobe, and just helping women understand some of the psychology, the basics, but also just in general, like here are the colors that are coming up for spring. So this is what you're going to see in store. Here's how it works depending on color palettes, if you know your colors. Otherwise, this is what's coming. Just giving that advice that sometimes can be a bit hard to find.
Yeah, yeah. Good on you. Well done for doing it, because that's a big, brave step to take. And I
Yeah,
applaud
and
you.
I know that you know it so well. Yeah.
So now you're, as a woman in your 40s, you're going through a number of those transitions that you mentioned before. So you had a hysterectomy, you've had endometriosis, you've got 3 children who are growing now. So you've got teenagers in the house.
I do.
So all those hormonal shifts, dealing with that stage of life. How are those big transitions going for you? You're sort of coming into this, some of the smorgasbord that awaits you, my dear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I think my mum had a really hard time with menopause, and I remember watching her go through that. So I've always been quite terrified of it, which didn't help when I told a naturopath that once, and she said, "Oh, well, you should be,
Oh.
especially with your endometriosis, you should be, because the treatments that we can give you for it will make your endo worse." And I think I must have been about 37 at that time, 38. And so I've always been really quite nervous about it. For me, it's really hard to differentiate between what is an endometriosis sign and what is a perimenopause sign, because they do cross over quite a bit, like the brain fog, even the cramps, it all kind of melds into one. And for me now, having had a hysterectomy, I can't track my cycle like how other women can. It's just some months I can and some months I have no idea where I'm at.
Yeah.
So that can be really hard. The way it's affecting me is almost 10 months to the day since I had my hysterectomy, I started getting the night sweats quite viciously. And then I couldn't sleep at night and I was waking up. And then I was hot all the time, which again, I've got allergies, and my allergies show that they're present by me getting hot. I feel like I'm the sun from the inside out. So then I'm second guessing all the time. Well, is this perimenopause, or have I touched or eaten something I shouldn't have? So it's been tricky. And then add into that, as you mentioned, you've got teenagers in the house. So then you start to second guess yourself in terms of, well, is this me that's causing all the arguments maybe that are going on, or that kind of thing? Or is this just a mix of everything coming together? So it's not easy. I'm probably going to, I've listened to your, obviously, I've listened to your podcast for ages, and I listened to Dr. Shan, and I'm going to investigate seeing someone to maybe try and help me, because I think I've got to that point now where I need some help.
Yeah.
But the brain fog at the moment is probably the hardest one for me. Like, I think I told you in our pre-chat, I did like 3 laps of the kitchen the other day. My husband's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know." And I said, "I've lost something." He's like, "What have you lost?" I don't know what I've lost. I know I'm looking for something, but no idea what it is. And it's that feeling of, I like being a very productive person. And when that brain fog hits, you can literally sit and look at your laptop all day long and nothing will happen.
Mm.
And I'm struggling probably a bit with that. So
Mm.
it's an interesting time. But on the flip side, my son said to me, I think it was the other day on school drop off, and he's like, "So would you go back to your 30s?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, thanks." So I'm quite happy where I am. And that feeling of, when you turn 40, and I didn't want to turn 40, and I did that in
I
lockdown.
was the same.
Mm.
And the minute I turned 40, I
That's
was
fine.
fine. The lead up, and I don't know what it was about 40, 50 didn't worry me at all. I couldn't give a hoot. But 40,
You know, 30 didn't worry me.
yeah,
40,
I
yes,
hear
I
you.
was, I was
Yeah.
in lockdown. So it's not like we did that much. But once I turned 40, and then once I'd had the hysterectomy, and then I've had pelvic floor issues that have come out of that, which are actually worse than what I went in for.
Oh,
But I feel really happy where I am for me, if that makes any sense.
yeah.
Even with all that other stuff going on, I feel like I really know who I am and what I want, and where my path is going, that isn't connected to the kids or even to my husband, that this is just me.
Mm.
And I think carving out time as well, I've made a real conscious effort to read. So going back to reading books, teaching myself piano, teaching myself to sew, because I like obviously teaching myself stuff, but it's just carving out time that is literally got nothing to do with any of them, because they always want you.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like you say, it's an interesting time of life.
It is. Well done you. You're well and truly on the path of finding what you want. And if you're like that now, then the next, the further down the track is going to be so much easier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I don't feel scared by it anymore, which is really good.
That is good. And
Yeah.
that'll make your mum a lot happier too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who are your role models? Is your mum one of your role models? Do you have particular role models?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, my mum and dad.
Mm,
I adore them, but also they are just the best examples of what people, like good human beings, should be. And other role models, don't really have any that I actually, you know what, going back to where I've loved fashion, and I've just thought of this while I was talking to you. I loved Princess Diana as a kid, and I would look at all the clothes that she would wear. And I actually just bought a dress recently that is so similar to a dress that she wore. And as soon as I saw it and tried it on, I was like, "Oh my goodness." I text mum and said, "This is like a Princess Diana dress." So I think if anything, it would go back to her and go back to that. That's where that love started, and looking up at her.
mm. Very good. Well done, Ashley. And also, what are you looking forward to in the future?
Oh, well, my eldest is she's in year 11, so we're going into HSC territory, quickly followed by another one,
Mm.
who's right behind her. I love the adult conversations I'm having with them and spending more and more time with them. And the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, I want to take them to Europe. Traveling, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's a big thing for me. And so that is what I would like to do in terms of personal. It's traveling with them. We're doing DIY, so I'm looking forward to that being
Yeah.
completed.
Yeah.
And in terms of business, I'm launching a full star course. So you're the first time I've said that out loud to anyone.
Repeat it again. Go and say it
Yeah,
once.
no, I'm launching a full star course. I don't even have a name yet, but it is coming,
Good
and
on
it
you.
encompasses sort of everything that I am: color, style, makeup. And it's all about, when we talk about style, it's about literally being happy in what you wear every day.
Yeah.
Looking in the mirror and going, you know what? I feel really good today.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
Good on you. Well done. So you have got plenty to look forward to.
Yes,
And
lots
then
going.
that being the case, then our final wrap-up question is, what do you hope 80-year-old Ashley will say about current day Ashley?
Oh, that she had the courage to try, that she didn't sit back. I don't want to have regrets. I don't want to think, oh, I should have done that. And I think that goes back to my childhood because I don't think I'm a person that does that. I'm always ready to give something a try and give it a go, even if it goes wrong. So yes, I think keep going. She would say, keep going on the path that you are and don't get lost in your family in the nicest way possible. Make sure that there is an Ashley still there, not just a wife and a mum.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and helping us understand more about colour. I think we
Thank
all
you
know
for
what
having me.
colours we think might suit us, but
Yeah,
there's obviously a lot more involved to it.
there
And
is. Yeah,
just feel good in your clothes, and that might help you.
absolutely.
Knowing what
Yeah,
colour suits you is certainly a big head start on that. So thank you,
absolutely.
Ashley. I really
And I
appreciate
thank you
your
so
time
much.
today.
I so appreciate you having me on. Thank you so, so much.
Pleasure. See ya.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to make the next chapter of your life the best one yet. And remember to share this episode with someone else who would love it and connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Joe Clark Coaching. All the links and the details from today's episode are in the show notes or at joeclarkcoaching.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe this show on your favourite podcast app and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps more midlife women find these empowering conversations. I can't wait to chat with you next week. Until then, take care and keep creating a life that you love.